Hello, everyone. Welcome to CTN. To learn more about us, please visit ciotalknetwork.com. And the topic for today is rather an interesting one. It's the paradox of speed, scaling innovation without losing control. So we all know that these days there has been a lot of action. We are trying to do different sets of digital transformation initiatives. We are trying to bring AI into the mix, and we are bringing some very interesting business ideas and innovation. Now, with all of that, if it was done or if it is done at a reasonable pace, that it's okay. But we also are trying to wear another hat, which is to do everything yesterday, which is do it very fast. And agility is the name of the game, and the speed is the name of the game. But isn't there a risk that when you try to do too many things too quick, something or the other would fall through the cracks? So the goal here on today's discussion that we're going to have is to make sure that we discuss about the potential frameworks or ways by which this could be controlled, that we eat the cake and have it too, which is that you're able to scale innovation and also at the same time, don't lose control and build a solid momentum for your organization. So to unpack this, I have with me Alejandro Martinez, who's the CIO with Fortrea. Hey, Alejandro, how are you, sir?
How are you? Good to see you.
Very good to have you with us. So without further ado, let's jump into the first question, which is, if you, of course, you've been around the block and you've worked with many organizations. You actually remember of an instance where you wanted to move very fast and you wanted to get innovation in there, and things actually did not go as planned because of the very speed at which you were trying to execute.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And if you don't mind, I would like to start. One of my hobbies is history. So I study quite a lot of history, and let's talk briefly about innovation, because innovation has been part of the human beings since we have record. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the first registers of official record of the word innovation was by the Greek philosophy, and then the Roman. They have a specific focus on innovation. So why do innovate? You innovate for multiple potential objectives. You innovate either to differentiate from competitors, to meet specific customer demands, to drive growth profitability, to adapt to change, or perhaps as a retention strategy for your employee. So at the end of the day, this is part of today's environment for any company. And to answer to your specific question, I remember that a couple of years back, the company was in a major transformation, massive retailer, multinational retailer, and we were facing tremendous challenges to drive innovation and move the platforms at pace. So we decided that the cloud was the solution for us. We decided this is a massive ERP implementation at scale, and we decided to do a cloud implementation. Believe it or not, Sanjay, some of the problems that we face is that it was so massive, the instant, that at that time, we have to go with bare metal because it was not scaling. And at the end of the day, it brought a lot of issues that you can imagine, from the software side of the house, the databases, the integration, and others. So we were trying to move so fast and bring innovation that at the end of the day, the outcome and the speed was not as we were expecting. So luckily, we have tremendous partners to assist us, people, and adjust, because they knew that it was the largest implementation for retail for that specific platform. And we hold hands and we went, we recover for an interesting launch, if you will. So at the end of the day, the learning here is, yes, you need to move innovation at speed. And what is important is to recover and learn fast. I think the recovery time sometimes is not included as part of our plans, but it's important, right? Sometimes, and we know that history tells us that when you're dealing with rapid as technology changes, you can get surprised.
So with whatever you've gone so far, is there any specific learning that you think you could impart with our audience?
Yes, I think what is important is the first topic. You don't want to slow down innovation. I think it's important as a CIO, you need to build a system that allows you to learn and adapt, but be flexible to respond to any eventualities as they emerge. So, and perhaps the other takeaway is you can use any unsuccess as another opportunity to innovate.
Now, what does it do to you personally? Because when you are saying, you know what, we want to scale and we want to help the organization move forward, and you also gave just recently, you're recommending that we slow down. So damn if I slow down, damn if I don't. You would be in a precarious position, right? You'd have a predicament here.
Exactly. So I think what you need to create is you need to create the right conditions to innovate, right? Let's start to understand where we are. We are in the digital age. And we have tremendous amount of technology converging to us at the same time. And I'm talking way beyond ML and AI. We have multiple technologies converging at the same time, which give us a challenge and opportunity. As a CIO, I can tell you with confidence, there's no better time to be a CIO, because at the end of the day, you have tremendous opportunity in order to leverage these tool sets to really impact the outcome of your business. So always is a dichotomy, if you will. In one side, you get the mandate from business to move fast, experiment, move fast, and bring fast ROIs. Because I don't believe that the days of the long projects, I think they are gone, right? Now everybody's looking for fast implementation. Here the takeaway, Sanjog, that I can recommend my colleagues is make sure that you set the proper guardrail. Make sure that you are not building game. So you need to create the right framework so your teams can innovate with confidence.
And if you are looking at doing this whole innovation and you are trying to make this happen, it is not a one person's job either. The whole village needs to come together, which means at whatever level they were operating earlier, the whole village needs to step up their game. They have to get more creative. They have to start moving things from idea to execution to realization of what you had set out to do. Whatever processes, whatever checkpoints, whatever plans, whatever strategies that you had put in place when you were moving at speed X, if you're going to make it 2x, 3x, or x plus 0.5, those things will also have to change. So did you determine, or were you able to figure out a way to make the shift, and that too not just for yourself, but for the whole village, and that too not do it for once? You actually get this to become like a formula that every time I need to make it 2x, I have to make this shift in the people, process, policy, budget, culture, tech, leadership for me to scale innovation at 2x the speed or 5x the speed. Is there a method to madness?
Well, I think there's no good or bad answer, but I have my method, if you will, that everything starts with the organization, because at the end of the day, as you point out, you need to mobilize the village if you really would like to do an impactful and successful transformation. And again, that includes both business and technology, because the technology, as we know, the technology will not bring the ROI is by doing adoption when things can happen. So the first topic that I would like to bring to your attention is around the organization. In terms of organization, in my case, I use a concept that called molecular organization, right? I'm in life science, and I need to refer to molecular organization. What do you mean about my molecular organization framework? My organization is in constant evolution. This is super important. I have a model that blends obviously the robustness of the operation framework to make sure that I do not expose the business unnecessary, but I need to have an organization arm that can pivot and do experimental really fast. So you might remember that many, many years ago, even Gartner was talking about the two-speed IT. I don't believe in two-speed IT. I believe in multi-speed IT, right? Depending on the project that the domain of your organization will be working with, you use different squads, scrums, teams, or platforms to make sure that they address that specific problem. Again, I have a molecular organization and I'm organized based on business platforms. My team, solid line, have two solid lines to report also to the business. I have individuals that they report to the presidents of the specific divisions, solid line, not dotted line. And they report to me and they share common objectives, either market share, sales, volume, quality, productivity, you name it. They have hard objectives. It's a way to put the skin on the game, right? I think it's very important to make sure that you co-create with your business partners to drive specific outcomes. So that's in a nutshell, and we can keep peeling the onion, if you will. But this is the way that I operate. And it's quite efficient because at the end of the day, you can have teams working at different speeds with different technologies, with different objectives and moving at a specific pace, if you will.
So, since you mentioned that you got different teams, what's the motivation for anyone else to keep taking on that more tension, more pressure, more chain by the boatloads? Would you fire most of the people, because not very many people sign up for this constant madness?
Well, at the end of the day, I agree with you, but leadership drives behavior, right? I think it's important what is the mojo of your organization, and is your organization hungry and shared common objective? This is what a high-performance organization is, when it's not individual. For superstars or Mustangs and brilliant individuals, when you reach a point where the organization shares common objective, this is where amazing things can happen. And this is very clear. This is the concept of a high-performance organization. So I encourage and develop and I handpick the individuals or my team to make sure that everybody shares the common objective. You cannot imagine the amount of time that I invest working with my team, basically coaching them, advising them, and help them to grow. Perhaps the majority of my team is to make sure that everything is equipped to be successful. I feel sometimes I love sport, and I feel that I am the coach of a team. I don't have individual stars. I don't have the Ronaldos. I don't have the players. I have a team that I understand their position. I understand that they understand what is the play. They run the play. So we can win the program and achieve the objectives. And we work with tremendous passion. This is what is important. We celebrate successes. There are multiple tools that you can deploy in order to bring everybody on board. And let me give you an idea, an example, because this is a little bit vague. Let's land in a specific concept. Right? Today, one of the most popular domains that everybody's talking about is ML and AI, right? Let's talk about the specific case of how are we running out and what we are doing without sharing any secret, if you will. So the first topic from the top, we made the decision that we will democratize ML and AI. Very important thing, right? How you democratize ML and AI. This is a statement that senior management made. Now, what we have done after picking the specific technology stack, the first topic is yes, we need to reskill and upskill the organization, not just the technology group, the entire business organization. Because as we discussed, technology by itself not bring magic. And upscaling is not an activity, it's a mindset. So as soon as the team is starting to understand advanced, apologies, let me take one step back. So we implement a mandatory ML and AI training across the enterprise. I mean, and life science, they need to take compliance, et cetera, mandatory training. So we are rolling a mandatory training so everybody understands the role that they are expecting to take and how they can use this technology to be much more proactive. I love the concept of Professor Mollick. I'm sure that you have read. They call it co-intelligence, right? If I can you empower and provide better tools to your team to be much more productive. And this is exactly the view, but they're different, of what we are doing. So in addition to the mandatory training of ML and AI, we have a white glove solution where we onboard each team, face-to-face training, onboarding, training, and in any specific domains, we are training them in order to how to learn how to use prompt engineering, et cetera, to be much more productive. How can they use the tools in the ecosystem to drive a specific outcomes? And it's quite interesting because now when you start to talk to, and everybody share the common knowledge, this is where senior management is starting to push and say, yes, now I'm expecting a specific outcomes of this technology, right? Not pilot. We are expecting a specific outcomes. How this is going to help us to improve the productivity of the organization? How can we improve the quality, et cetera, very hard and complex topics. And this is where you co-create with your business partners. That's why the molecular organization and the platform-based organization happens. And this is what we're driving. Now, at the end of the day, there's tremendous pressure to create value, which at the end of the day, this is the name of the game. How can you drive adoption and create value?
So, beautiful points that you made regarding how we can do this co-intelligence creation, right? Now, it was a human to human. Now, interestingly, we are bringing digital, rather AI workers into the place. So this co-intelligence building can be improved in variety, in quality, and in volume. I mean, the potential is there. You had more control, more say in how two humans co-create or two teams co-create. Now you're bringing AI into the mix. And especially with agentic AI, it's like a black box, number of things happening, autonomy, et cetera. And before you know it, it could very well go out of control if the guardrails are not put. But even which guardrails to put is also being currently reviewed, assessed, and determined. So you got potential of technology, AI, automation, et cetera, which will give you that speed of and scaling of this innovation. As you started on that journey to whatever degree you did you find that if we were super skeptical and super cautious and then used AI, it slowed you down? Or you went ahead and then for the sake of speed, you applied it quickly, and then you figured out, oh my God, this actually created damage, more damage than good, and then you retraced your steps and then fix it. So what is the approach that you are recommending for this co-creation of intelligence and camaraderie and teams coming together, but now dropping in this interesting mix of human workers and AI workers in the mix?
Yes, this is a fascinating topic. So by nature, I'm in the life science, and we have a very trained framework where we need to operate. So it was very carefully chosen by design where to starting to apply this technology. At the end of the day, starting to do innovation at the edge not at the core, to make sure that we got confidence and about the outcomes and also the domain expertise of the technology. Clearly, right? Especially on my job, agentic infrastructure. We decide to go, okay, this is something that we run, and maybe, the run-ups, et cetera, is a clear domain where you can apply. So with our technology partner, we said, starting to apply different pumps in different domains to make sure that we understand the ecosystem, but at the end of the day, we make the operations as efficient and autonomous as we can. And we achieve very interesting level of scale, if you will. So now that we create in parallel path, the business understanding how to acquire and use the technology, my technology stack, and also our strategic partners on their common objective, we're starting to create a framework to say, where do we apply the technology? And the technology can apply in different domains. The safer way we're starting to do this is in the enterprise, right? If you talk about finance, HR, commercial, and other domains, I think there are tremendous opportunities to introduce different level of technology, like a maturity model, good, better, best, right? Crawl, walk, run. So we can start with basic robotic process automation. Then we move as soon as the technology was domain and the guardrails very well managed, if you will, we're starting to introduce orchestration. Then you started to improve workflow, and then automation, and then hyperautomation. So at the end of the day, it's a journey. It's something that we have been very clear in. This is a journey. We will, again, based on the nature of our business, we will not go to the extreme innovation in the core, because we know when you don't practice properly ethical AI and responsive AI, you can get the wrong answers. And at the end of the day, we cannot have the luxury to produce those outcomes. So, let me pause here, because there are multiple topics that we can go from this perspective, from this angle.
No, absolutely. So one of the things which does come to mind, you mentioned about building a culture, getting everybody to come together and start working. Interestingly, when you tell a person to be creative, they use one part of the brain. And when you want them to be watching for structure, watching for boundaries, they're using different part of the brain. And you're trying to do it with multiple people, multiple teams, with, of course, common objective. But aren't we asking them to do contradictory things? And if you had to come up with a way for you to make sure that, yes, you created a culture of innovation, and yes, you created a way for them to go and become super creative and come up with ideas to scale innovation, they also adhere, or be wanting to adhere, the systems and processes and control you put in place so that we don't lose our shirt in the process. How do you, like while we talk about scaling innovation, how do you scale this rather, a dichotomy of mindsets and expectations from your people?
No, yeah, absolutely. This is one of the daily challenges that every technology leader is facing. So we have a very strong governance around where and how we deploy the technology. This is important, and this is not led by the CIO, right? We have a senior management council where we decide where we are going to be applying this technology. So again, the guardrails needs to be super important, because yes, innovation matters, but at the end of the day, you want to control the outcome, right? At the end of the day, we have seen that when you have not trained properly the model, or you are using the wrong data set, sometimes you get false positives, or you can get hallucinations. You want to call it whatever you want, but you want to make sure that you stay in compliance. You cannot expose the business to be in a non-compliant situation. So it's very difficult to think that the technology organization will manage or control everybody. So again, going back to the platform organization that marries the business structure, we have in these cases a budget, which are business resources who have the activity to interact with my platform owners. So they need to assess the scope of each of the transformation initiatives and really make sure that, again, they are properly managed. So we cannot expose the business unnecessary. So we have a cultural experimentation by nature. We are in the life science domain, but at the end of the day, everything needs to be deployed in a way that we will not pose for the potential outcomes. Because at the end of the day, mistakes, if they apply in the wrong element, can be catastrophic and can kill your business. So we are trying to make sure that we do not apply, again, that we use responsible AI to make sure, or technology, multiple technologies, that to make sure that we do not expose the business for a catastrophic threat.
So tell me this, if you tried to do all of this, and while you used a good umbrella statement that we have to handle these challenges, but let me try to peel the onion a little bit and see what you have to offer. Are there any specific challenges when you try to put this much on your team's plate? Any resistance that you've seen typically they would have shared with you? Because see, there are two ways to approach it. One is, yes, you start them at the very baseline and continue to increase and take them incrementally to the next level till the time at some point they say enough is enough. Or you become inclusive in the way you even design what is the top limit, what is the starting point, and how am I going to incrementally increase it? Are you inclusive in your decision making, or you test it? Because not everybody's going to ever tell you this is my limit.
Yes,
what do you do on the ground?
No, this is quite important, because the part of the diagnostic that each of my platform owners needs to provide is what is the level of maturity from the teams and not from the business. Because, Sanjay, something that is quite important is around change management. The biggest that you will get is from the business if they are not ready or they do not understand how technology works or how to use the technology to achieve achieve a specific objective. So the first topic is you make sure that you understand and make sure that you have readiness, the proper readiness and preparations for a specific domains to make sure that you can be successful. Otherwise, we have seen multiple cases where you can have fantastic technology that guides, but it's never used or stopped in a pilot. So you need to make sure that the parallel paths, typical of any IT transformation, is the same when you are deploying this technology. So that's the first topic. You need to read what is the level of maturity and make sure that the skill set of the organization are ready to really absorb and really embrace the technology so they can produce the outcome. Because this is what matters. When adoption happens and the outcome, this is where you can claim success. The second element, yes, there are limits in the organization, right? And what we are doing, we have a strong network of partners where we can use to co-create. Also, we have some customers based on the nature of the business that they do not just embrace the technology that we are creating. They like the idea, they like our strategy, they like the vision and the roadmap that we're building. So we're starting to co-create with them. But you need to be very careful as a leader to make sure that you always feel the pulse of the organization, because diminishing returns. And you don't want to break your organization. So it's just a matter, it's one of the most important roles perhaps that the technology leader plays today. You need to read the organization. You need to understand the level of frustration, the level of success, the level of engagement, to make sure that you support them, encourage them, and empower them to do things. But as a leader, you want them to be successful. So it's super important for you to be as close as you can to your organization. jointly with your business partners to make sure that if you guys decide to hold hands and push it forward, you're going to be successful. You need to map all the conditions before pulling the trigger to make sure that, again, that you will not leave the point where people say, hey, this is too much. I'm not ready for this. You want to create the conditions where they will say, yes, come on, I'm ready. So that's and every organization, all my business partners, I see senior vice presidents super aggressive in the way that they want to deploy and use technology. And others there, I have the other spectrum where say, not now, or not starting to play with the small technology and automation here and there and come back next year and something like that. So your role as the technology leader is to starting to educate your business colleagues. So they starting to feel more confident about how the technology will bring. And this is beyond the technology that we're talking ML and AI. Is the role of every technology leader to make sure that they create the trust with your business partners so they can really drive value to the business. And again, going back to my example that the multi-speed IP, every of your business partners is different. So you need to make sure that you bring them to the right level of knowledge and you can move at the pace that they are, each of their organizations are ready to digest. Now, when I go to other domains, when I go to the chief exec and the board, obviously, this is fast-paced, and very, very intense conversation. So, as always, it's a delicate balance.
So, there is no 100% risk-proof organization. And whenever you are doing any sort of innovation, which means you are shifting from status quo, and whenever you shift from status quo, some risk gets introduced, which you try to then work on, mitigate it, etc. And it's only so much risk planning you can do because there are many things which are unknown, and only when you get into it is when you come to know that, okay, these are additional risk areas that we might have to work on. But then at the same time, all our energies cannot be put into just mitigating those risks, because in many cases, risk people will always say, don't do this and don't do that, because that's their job. But then your job is to meet the business expectation that I want to do it and I will do it. So this tug of war has to be handled. And one of the common ways, at least traditionally people have done, is to come up with the risk tolerance score or risk propensity score within the organization. That was good when the life was and business was as usual, but now with AI and ML, with a lot of unknowns, a lot of evolution, a lot of excitement towards it, even this needs to be revisited, that what is going to be our risk tolerance capacity. What have you guys done in that regard? Have you changed it? Have you gotten more risk averse because there are a lot of unknowns, or you've become a little more courageous to say, okay, let's play a little bit more?
Again, another fascinating topic. We can have perhaps an entire hour about this topic. What I would like to say is early days, right? It's early days as we starting to, I told you that one of the important topics is that we're creating the education framework to all my business colleagues and others. And it is important because everybody needs to speak the same language, right? You cannot assume that the executive responsible for privacy, HR, legal counsel, and others, they have the same domain, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to drive and generate an enterprise-wide policy around how to use these kind of technologies. So what I would like to say that for us is early days. I have not seen a drastic change in the way that we change our risk tolerance approach to many components. Always the quality organization and compliance are in the front to make sure that, again, that we don't expose unnecessarily the business. Now, again, early days, what I can anticipate is an evolution. How fast the evolution will take place, it depends on multiple elements. It depends on macroeconomic factors, competitive factors, and also the new talent that we are injecting, we are bringing to the organization. I'm very preliminary. We work in an organization, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone. I'm just trying to understand the context that I'm bringing this topic, where the profile of my user community is relatively young. Perhaps the average age circa 36-year-old. And we have folks super young for the nature of our business who are pushing us to say, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do that? And at the end of the day, I mentioned during my opening remarks why you innovate. And some of the elements of innovation, talent development and talent retention. If you don't play ball, I have an agenda that will be aligned with the values of this generation, they will not stay. They will go. And it's very expensive to recruit and train individuals. So at the end of the day, going back to my same comment, it's a balancing act. But it's early days. It's early days. I think this is going to be a fascinating journey for all the enterprises. We're watching very close. We're talking and assisting to multiple forums to see what other companies are doing, but we are not unnecessarily taking risks that will put the business in jeopardy.
Any new muscles that you have started building for yourself and your next line of leaders to get ready for it, because it's not going to slow down anymore, it's going to get faster?
So something that I learned multiple years from one of my first bosses is that this attitude to continue learning. And you have to do it. You have to do it. I mean, the amount of books, magazines, podcasts, etc., that I read to be informed and to be, again, engaged on this element is something that at the end of the day is a must do. So personally, what I have done, in addition to be educated, and I'm very selective and methodology about what I do on a daily basis. Also, I'm part of 2 advisory boards or growth boards for startups. I want to be in the middle of a major change in a company that was completely different of our company. And you cannot imagine how much I have enjoyed this element. And the other topic, again, it's a personal choice. I went back to academia. So I'm mentor of some students from a computer science master for specific institutions. And I'm a visitor professor for other institutions. What this has done, it has brought me back tremendous contact with new generation and colleagues in the academia that also they are bringing a very different agenda than the traditional enterprise with all the vendors. So again, everybody can train and develop their muscle differently. For me, this has been a super exciting and energetic muscle that I'm doing. For my teams, some of the methodologies and the sources of information where I acquired knowledge, I'm sharing openly with them. I'm sharing it even with my business colleagues. If I perhaps listen or watch an interesting podcast, I send it. I read books. Everybody in the organization got a book from me, my direct report for senior management, for Ethan Molly, co-intelligence book, etc., etc. But also we have specific coaches and specific training programs to make sure that we provide all the environment and the tools that are disposal for my team to be as effective as they want. Now, the other element is going back to leadership drive behavior. We are in a life science organization. And all of us have had a friend or a relative or a neighbor who's sick. And he or she is looking for a cure or a drug that can improve the quality of the life. My mission is personal. We drive and apply technology to improve the life of those individuals who are close to us. And when I talk to the team to give an idea about a project not being on track, my question is, do you imagine how many patients and how many lives you can save if you bring this program back to time? So this is personally, perhaps it's the peculiarity of my industry and my company, but this project is personally. That's why I talk about it with so many passion, because we see the impact of our programs and solutions in real life. And for me, that's priceless. That's impact. For might sound romantic. This is the life that I choose, and I'm enjoying it.
So when you look at this whole idea of objective, which is what you said, you have to save people's lives, and that is the North Star, and that's what you're using to, mobilize and motivate people, right? Then you spoke about projects, which need to be done in order for us to meet those objectives. Interestingly, there is a level in between, which is innovation strategy, which means if that strategy is not, or rather, the strategy is not aligned to the objectives. On the other hand, the projects don't meet that strategy, some things are going to go haywire and it will not meet what you want, what you set out to accomplish. Why I bring this as a, as a setup is because now the whole innovation strategy that you may have once created, and it would have been based on what the market looks like, what the business model looks like, what are the capabilities look like within an organization. All of them are getting disrupted and are being rethought, which means the innovation strategy itself needs to be fundamentally looked at, and not just for today. By design, the evolution will happen on multiple fronts. Businesses will get disrupted far more quickly. So would you every morning and get up and say, this is my strategy of the quarter or strategy of the week? Perhaps not. So what would you do to this strategy or the strategic layer? And how would you rethink how to handle it so that you become future fit, if not future perfect?
Our vision about innovation is very specific. We don't use innovation for the sake of doing innovation, and we don't do innovation across the entire enterprise. We call it pragmatic innovation. This is our approach, very pragmatic innovation based on business value. From the strategy side of the house, as I mentioned, my team is organized by platforms. Each of the platform officers, they have a very clear platform role. Right? At the end of the day, we have at least 2 years of services that needs to be enabled in order to provide a specific outcome of the business. Everything that we do, either product or services, needs to be linked to the value of it. If you don't produce value, you don't even talk to it, right? And we have a specific threshold of that. So at the end of the day, these platforms, like many other domains, they have fixed and variable part. We know in the short term, let's say for the next 90, 120 days, what are the products and services of the product roadmap that needs to be built. And again, this needs to be in lockstep with the senior vice president of each of the functions, because at the end of the day, they are expectations that an outcome will be created. It's not just deploying technology. What is the outcome that will be enabled as part of this technology? And again, there's the part variable. And the part variable is fed by multiple elements, right? We have an element that we call the technology radar. It's a function that my chief technology officer does. At the end of the day, we're scanning, like many other companies, the entire landscape, right? And we're saying, what interesting activities is happening in the technology sector? What is going on in our specific industry? What are the M&A activities? What are the activities here and there? But also, one of the most amazing sections of the technology rather is around the startups, right? What are the startups doing? What the university are doing? What are the cool technologies that we might want to talk to those guys to create a beautiful digital asset? And this is the part of the strategy. At the end of the day, all my direct reports are responsible for the governance, execution, and the strategy for each of the domains. And across the enterprise, my job is to make sure that we have a homogeneous end-to-end strategy, but it's fed by multiple threats, if you will, because as you said correctly, what if a new technology emerges from the left field, and if you have not kept an eye on your technology radar screen, that can disrupt you, and your bank can be completely disintermediated. So I think it's important as a technologist to make sure that you have your market intelligence to make sure that you take advantage of the activities, because in some cases represents opportunities for you. If there's a startup looking for funding or in a specific series of funding, well, you can influence if you create a specific project marketplace. So it's a very complex, but perhaps it's the most interesting part of the program, and this is what we discuss with the board. This is what we call the power play, right? And the tricky part is how can you summarize it in a plan on a page, so you can clearly communicate your strategic vision to the board, and this is where the dialogue happens. So, sorry, it was a very long answer, Sanjo, but again, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating area, especially what's going on our industry these days.
So suppose, this is my last question, suppose the CXO comes to you, says, you know what, Alejandro, I want to move fast, but I'm kind of losing the grip. What would be your advice for them?
Again, make sure that you can encourage innovation with confidence. And for confidence, you need to make sure that, that you have measured the risk and the potential risk. That will be my recommendation to any of my colleagues. Embrace innovation. Don't be disintermediated. Dinosaurs extinct for a reason.
Thank you so much, Alejandro, for sharing your insights about how organizations can scale innovation and not lose control. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope our audience gets a bunch of nuggets, and they will, because there's this practical experience shared by Alejandro, a lot of different ideas and approaches that you can use so that you can use the latest technology and see the business disruptions, make the full use of them, and also keep the guardrails that are necessary so that your output is also making sure that you are secure, you are moving forward, and you are creating value at all times, aligning to your objectives. So thank you so much. This is Sanjog All, your host, signing off. Till next week, take care and God bless.